All right, that little recording light, that's important. We've failed that a couple times.
You learn the hard way, have to redo the whole thing, maybe if okay, you have time.
Yeah. But and if we're even lucky to, some of the people who are listening right now, this isn't going out live. We put this stuff out later, although we hardly ever edit anything. Yeah. But yeah, we consider ourselves right now to be 2-stripe white belts in any of this stuff.
And media stuff.
We had 3 stripes, but we lost one of them. Yeah,
what happened there?
We got demoted. I said we did an interview, man. It was awesome. We got, it was we were talking with Annette Stack. It started off as a rough interview, not easy. Every question was like, ask a question. I know the stuff, like, don't ask open questions, don't ask closed ones, don't ask yes or no's, get explained. And so the first like half hour of it was tough. I mean, it was like dry, like barely asking, barely answering things of that nature. But by the time we got to the end, she was actually giving us some pretty cool stuff about like her first times at ADCC and actually being roomed with her opponent. Like
that'd be weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we try to be all friendly and like it's just competition, but that's gonna be a little hard.
Yeah, little hard on that one. Actually, one of these days I'll get an actual studio that.
That's still awesome.
Got the ladies getting ready to get some training in. So yeah, this is our submission coalition. I mean, it looks just like regular. It started off with just me and some guys. Usually after training, we would sit in the lobby after hours and just shoot the shit. And one day somebody was like, "Dude, you should record that." Yeah, why not?
Some of my students have talked about like, and you see it all these other bigger academies and stuff, like the mat chat and like the talk afterwards is probably some of the most favorite thing that people have. Like they put in the time, some of them less, some of them more, whatever. They get sweaty, they don't, but still everybody seems to like, not everybody, there seems to be a real small group of people that really love that mat time talk afterwards. They'll do it all day if you let them. They'll be here hanging out.
Oh, that will be. And, that's why sometimes we're
not even technique based or anything, just it's everything.
That's why like our final roll is roughly about 9 o'clock. Yeah, sometimes we'll be here till 10:30. And then my wife is like, no, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here.
Like food.
Otherwise I literally will, because that's my history. I mean, my instructor and I, when we first hooked up together, this 20 coming up on 30 years ago. We would train. I'd come in for the kids class, come in for the adult class, training would be done, and then we'd sit, talk, train a little bit, talk, train. Next thing we know, it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's gone.
But that was some of the best training, some of the best experiences I liked, because it was just fun. There was no expectations, just.
If like Eli Knight or whatever, he's on social media like crazy and all that stuff, and he always answers like everybody's questions as best he can and everything. I don't know how he finds time, but I used to take up a lot of his time, like after classes. I was that guy that just stuck around, like talking his ear off. Like I didn't know anything about anything at that point. It was just like me being white belt and just talking my ear, talking his ear off until 9:15 after class. So he was so patient, man.
I got some of my my cerebral assassins, that these are the guys that, I mean, damn, I look at them, I look at how much time I've got in the sport, and I look at them, the way they study, the way they, look up competitions and analyze matches and things of that nature. And I'm going, damn, I'm like, I went this speed, and I mean, I'm a classic car, and they're a new.
These new breeds have nitrous and turbos and everything else. They've got the internet and instructionals at their whim, and once these guys learn enough jiu-jitsu, especially if they have an athletic background, like you give them some basic principles of how to use the techniques they're seeing on the DVDs and all that stuff, and like it's like all of a sudden you're like, where did you learn that? I didn't show you that. And I've been watching Craig Jones and Gordon for 3 hours.
Yeah, they're asking me questions, and they're like, oh, well, I just watched this and, and like they're throwing out. So when I started, the only Japanese I knew came from not jujitsu. I mean, the Japanese terminology was not associated with jujitsu. I knew it from the little bit I did judo, the training I did in Okinawan Goju-ryu, things of that nature. But there was zero Japanese terminology in relationship to the study of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Zero. So they're, now with Danaher and a bunch of that stuff, and they're like throwing out stuff, and I'm like, okay, show me. I'm like,
if I hear Ashirami, like I'm automatically like single AX. I don't know. I don't know. I try to find ways to do it, where people understand what I'm saying. So,
yes, ma'am. What you looking for?
Timer.
Hey, can you guys keep it down in there? We're recording.
We'll try.
That's why I closed your door on you.
We'll
as long as we're having fun,
Yeah. So what got you in martial arts? What was your
oh man, I'm one of the classic stories that like I actually grew up on hoist whenever I was younger, to be honest with you. So like I was watching WWE and WWF VHS tapes. Like I would walk to the movie hut, like I was a single child, living in a single mom home and stuff like that. So not a whole lot to do in Benton, Kentucky, in the middle of not a whole lot of population in Kentucky,
that's a liquid death, not a beer.
Yeah. Stuff's good, man. But so like I don't know, just trying to find ways to keep myself occupied. I'd go rent WWF and WWE stuff, and like there wasn't fighting too much in my life. And in Benton, there wasn't boxing or wrestling, or there was a couple of karate places, but those were a little bit out of our budgets and stuff. So you didn't really get too much of a chance to do that stuff. But I watched Hoist, I think, when I was probably 10 or 11. I just ran out of WWE stuff. I got tired of watching it. And I'm like, what's this UFC stuff? So I picked up UFC 1 and 2 tapes and like went back home and watched them. I was like, I still don't to this day understand that I knew what I was watching whenever I watched that, but I just knew like that's different. And so like and then a few years later I was offered to do jiu-jitsu by like a guy that owned a gym. His name was Derek Perry. And it didn't work out. I was gonna like clean his gym for him and start learning jiu-jitsu with him. 17 years later, like I finally get the opportunity financially and all that stuff to work it out and where I can train. And I started going to Three Rivers Martial Arts Academy in Paducah. And my buddies finally got me on the mats. I was powerlifting at the time, finally broke away from that. And whenever I started, it was just my very first class was Derek Perry, the guy that tried to get me to start 17 years ago, rather, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of sad, you can't change anything, but it's like, man, what if I would have been able to start 17 years ago in this stuff, knowing that like I started when I was like 30,
I had to change that. Because I mean, for mine, I mean, I didn't do any grappling arts till I was probably about 23. I graduated from the police academy in 1991. That puts me at 19 years old. But that wet my whistle because I found out that some of the guys that were my TAC officers in the academy were actually friends with my actual Goju instructor. And so some of those relationships carried on after the police academy, but that was my first taste of like hands-on. I mean, other than just punching and kicking.
Grappling, like getting your hands
right. I dabbled in a little Aikido and things of that nature, but there's a big difference between wrist locking somebody and actually like subduing, like the pain compliance maneuvers and things of that nature. And so my mind starts to go into that, what if, because I had friends that wrestled in high school and they all tried to get me to wrestle and everything else. And I was like, nah, that's not my deal. It wasn't for the reason like most people, they're like, no, the singlet's gay or this or that. That was never I just, for whatever reason, I just didn't want to do it. But I look back now and
golden ticket.
Well, and I'm like, man, I wish I did. But the part that switched for me though was it changed though, because I used to be like, man, how good would I be now if I did that then? And now I'm like, I don't even care. I'm like, I just have so much fun doing this. It's kind of like finding out that a food that you shied away from because you thought you didn't like it.
Like it's now like,
and then you find out it was amazing, and you're like, oh my God, I could have been, my whole life I could have been doing
enjoying this. Yep.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like, man, it's just I know it would have made me better, but just knowing where my passion is now and has been for damn near 30 years is, damn. I mean, I could have been.
Yeah, and you think like it's hard to get that out of your head, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and like how would I have been? So the only way I've like been able to kind of remedy for myself is like now, like I've been able to like have this opportunity. Like I'm a coach of a Pedigo team now. It's like those things that I didn't offer, I wasn't offered in the things that I couldn't afford for, from because my mom couldn't afford it. And, what if I can get that done for those kids, if I can just reduce the amount of kids that had it like me, that's the goal now for me. Not necessarily like, oh man, I wish I would have been a world champion because I would have had wrestling and all that stuff. I probably won't ever be a world champion.
I would.
That's gone. But, maybe at least I can like benefit others to become world champions and not have that same outlook where you're like, man, I wish I would have had those opportunities. I think giving kids opportunity for success is like the key to everything. And people gotta find stuff they love. So
I was just like, man, I mean, I was like, like imagine, whatever's your favorite thing in life. Let's say it's chocolate ice cream. Unless for the longest time you stayed away from it because you didn't think you liked it. And all of a sudden somebody, was like, hey, check this out. And you're like, what's that? And you're like, that's chocolate ice cream. You're like, fuck.
Why did I not?
Why did I not?
My friends let me down on that one.
And same thing. So when we opened up, our academy, that was always in my mind though, to be honest with you. I never, at that time period, jiu-jitsu was not the art. When I first started, it was Taekwondo and karate and things of that nature. And so I always had it in the back of my mind. I wanted to do my own school. And then it's kind of funny how jiu-jitsu and MMA specifically just completely replaced all of that. I still love, I haven't trained Taekwondo in 25 years. I still train Goju every once in a while, but nothing consistent. I still have a love for it though, but I find myself going back to it a little bit.
Is it the love that you go back to? You just enjoy it?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
And I miss certain things. Well, because I use I use concepts and everything I learned from it quite a bit when I'm teaching MMA and things of that nature. I mean, because a roundhouse kick is a roundhouse kick is a roundhouse kick. I mean, there's subtle little differences, but it doesn't seem to matter if it came from Muay Thai or Goju or you name it. I mean,
the same hip movements and mechanics.
It's kind of like when you look at jiu-jitsu and you look at like an arm bar. I mean, the arm bar was also there in judo. The arm bar is also there. And then there's, we see little tweaks that show up because of rule changes, things of that nature. But I mean, for the most part, it's still based in the same foundation. So when I'm doing MMA, I'm using a lot of concepts from Goju. And what I've been finding anymore is when I'm talking to people and I'm teaching, when they're like, man, that's cool. Where'd you learn that? And the more I'm going, well, because of this, and this, the more I'm going, man, I need to, I kind of miss it a little bit, I
guess that kind of goes back into why we crossbreed information all the time. We're both like kind of like the old cross training information and all that stuff. Because you like even between different sports, you see like things, how they help each other.
All the time.
Me working boxing helped out my wrestling.
Exactly. And that blows people's minds because I tell them right off the bat, I'm like 6 months of jiu-jitsu made me a better striker. Like, no, no. It was so visceral that because jiu-jitsu is such a hands-on, such a tangible thing that certain concepts were so much easier to learn within there, like, how to block out an angle or something like that, because it's physical, it's tangible. Whereas in the striking arts, it's in space, right? And that door window opens and closes so quickly that it was really, so same thing, like, and that's right. And they're like, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you. I mean, okay, how about this? My training partners, my sparring partners were telling me how much of a difference was happening. So it's not my belief system. It's the people I was sparring that were going, dude, what are you doing?
Why is that different?
Because you went from being, maybe I was like, the third down or whatever to suddenly the guys couldn't touch me.
Yeah.
And they were noticing a huge difference. And then I also find myself using karate in jiu-jitsu a lot, like a ton. My paper cutter chokes are different than anybody else I've ever trained with. The way I do them, the way I enter them, and everything else. And they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "That's Agyuke."
Well, I'm gonna have to figure that out.
I'm like, that's Agyuke from Goju. I mean, I'm like, just certain ways, like the way I enter into certain things, the way like I can dump my hips. I've always been able to to do very rapid hip changes and things of that nature. Man, that's probably from doing tens of thousands of kicks.
Yeah.
And Goju we do exercises where we do like sabaki drills and things of that nature. It's all fast just hip twitch movements. And so I find myself in like scissor sweeps. I'm like, dude, that's a roundhouse. That's what we call mawashi. When the knee drags across the chest and the foot hooks into the hip, and one kicks under and one kicks over, I'm throwing a roundhouse through your body.
Yeah.
And that's where I tell people all the time. I'm like through here, I'm going to frame up and I'm going to throw an elbow. I'm going to throw an elbow up through your throat and through your neck. So I'm throwing strikes throughout my game, even though they're not strikes, but I'm using the same motions, the same type of positions, the same type of leverage.
Because like if your hips are not placed right and your punch is not here, your hips not following and stuff like that, it's going to be a terrible frame or a terrible
right.
Makes sense.
And then like when you're coming up, like we call one like a motivator sweep or the like, you come in, you crunch the shoulder, and then you're prying that elbow up. Yeah. So through here, my body alignment is the same way I would do it if I was throwing an elbow in Goju or in Muay Thai, or same thing, like I said, scissor sweeps. I mean, as I
kind of taught you that physical, the mechanic ability of your body
working together. So I can tell people, like, look, I'm using striking throughout jiu-jitsu constantly. It's just you would never call it a strike because we're in physical contact. Now it's a push, but the mechanics are the same.
You would still have the same form, just not you're just holding that form instead of actually striking that form.
And then there's certain pieces that I do. Like we had Dean Lister in here. We were doing some straight ankle locks, and he's like,
that's a good one to learn from.
And he comes in and he's like, all right. So from here, he's like, I take the bone in the wrist and I come in and I do this, and I'm looking at it going, that's pretty much exactly or similar to how I do it. And then as he comes around, I was helping out another group, getting them in the position. And then I was doing one, and he looks at it and he goes, that's not quite the way I was doing it. He goes, but that's cool. And so when he goes, show me that. And but it's so subtle. It's so small that the way he was doing it was a direct compression. And mine, like when we're doing like compression arm bars, where you're running your wrist across the elbow and everything else. So I use a technique I call cut and fillet. So, you take the bone, you cut over to expose the elbow, but mine is not a direct compression. I scoop as I come in. So I do the same thing on the ankle. As I come in, I put the wrist into,
so then you rotate in,
then I scoop.
Yeah.
And things of that nature. Now, those were all things I got from other arts.
Yeah.
I nobody's ever shown me that in, say, like jiu-jitsu or the like. To me, like that was things from like Goju and Aikido and other stuff.
So check this out. There was a guy that was really good at guillotines. I ran into two of them, and it was hilarious. Both of them came from the Diaz camp places. Like both of them, coincidentally, like I was like, man, why are you guys like? You feel like this other guy I ran into about guillotines. I was like, and he was just all over my head nonstop. Couldn't stop the guillotines from like coming in. And some of the tightest, best guillotines I've ever felt in my life. And this is like probably 3 years ago. And then I met some guy at Tent Plant Jacksonville a year and a half ago that was like having that.
Right.
Same feel. Ironically enough, same camp. You know what I'm saying? Same little bitty differences.
Right. Little things.
And like they both came from learning the guillotines the same way.
Yeah.
Just little super subtle differences.
Like, same
that
thing.
made it that visible. I've been in 1,000 guillotines. I've tapped to them, whatever.
Yeah.
But why are those different? And they came from the same.
And I felt
so
like
weird.
same thing when I'm doing like lapel chokes and the like. So I come in, I set the lapel. Now, when I'm coming in, again, I use that bone a lot, coming in, set it in, and then the wrist rotates in, things of that nature. And again, it's most of that type of conceptual type stuff, whether it was the bone here or whether you're blading on the other side, things of that nature. I got a lot of that stuff dialed in from traditional karate, from Aikido, from a bunch of other stuff.
Because that's like the hardest point where you were striking with or anything, right? I guess, right?
Well, I mean, you have a lot of different, techniques that when you come in, it's kind of like if you look at like some of the old Boss Rutan stuff, so goju as a term means hard, soft. So goju, actually, if you look at it, there's a lot of grappling in goju itself, even though it's a stand-up martial art. There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of pummeling, elbows, knees. It's a tight art. It's not your long range art. It's not your
you're in that red zone, like,
and so there's a lot of that infighting type stuff, which realistically speaking, take that, drop it down, as Craig Jones calls it, so
he came over there
and it's one of those things. So I find that like you said, that cross training because the human body really, come on, we can only do so many things to the human body, so it really comes down to the gross motor skill stuff that we learn. Everybody's got it. It's the minor details, the intricacies, things of that nature. Like same thing. I did Western fencing for about 3 years. My defense was altered dramatically because of Western fencing. Because in that sport, it's all pokey. You've got your foils, which is all just poking, and then you got sabers, which is slashing. So when it starts off, it's just foils, just poking. Okay. But the blade is X amount long or whatever, the tip is, and so when they're poking, you can either, which now you have to make sure, like if I'm defending, I have to defend you, but I have to keep my blade pointed at you. Otherwise, because I can only poke, I can't slash.
It has to be straight.
Has to be straight. So when you're defending, if you defend like this, if your point's way out here, good luck counter striking. So, and then, your defense.
I don't know that anybody's ever really thought about fencing, that whole effect, where it does, like if you block wrong.
And like same thing through here. Your defense is only about 6 to 8 inches wide. That's it. That's all the defense you'll do. If it goes past that, you're putting too much.
And one wrong mistake over-exaggerates.
And now you're behind, you're trying to catch up and things of that nature. So your defense is just a small motion out, keeping the tip of your blade on your target. So it really tightened up my defense in that regard, because I was trying to realize, I'm like, man, in my stand-up striking, my blocks are just way too big. And then it started my concept, or not my concept, but my personal on counter striking, things of that nature. I'm going, man, I'm blocking, but this is why I can't, why my counter strikes suck. Is because when I'm blocking, I'm not in good positions to then launch my own counter strike, because in fencing, I'm taking my weapons off target. And so that all started to tighten me up. And again, it's a great, I make a saying to my team every once in a while, saying, as a coach, there's times where I see something I would like them to do. Okay. And there's times where, for whatever reason, my voice is not carrying the message the way I would like it to. Okay. So imagine, like in jiu-jitsu, you're learning something and it's just not carrying the message you would like it to. Okay. And then somebody else says it.
And ding's home.
Ding. That's it. So realistically speaking, for me, the message was there, but it took this other messenger to really get me to understand it and hone it in. And things of that nature, and then obviously, as I talk to some people, your origin seems to dictate a lot of how you look at things. So if you're a wrestler and you see somebody come in onto a body lock, get an underhook, step in and throw, okay, in wrestling, you're like, that's wrestling. A judoka is going to look at that and go, man, you're doing judo. You're like, I've never done judo. All I've ever done is wrestling. I mean, and actually, if we want to, if people want to look at the histories of things, I mean, come on, wrestling is, I mean, historically speaking, wrestling is as old as you can get.
It's grandfathered all of it.
But but it depends on your origins. Where'd you see it from first? Where'd you learn it from first? That seems to make a big impact on each people. When the reality is, it's like, like it's been there. It's been there a long time. You just found it in judo, or you found it in jujitsu, or you found it in wrestling. Right. But then you look at the way a judoka does it, and you go, oh, there's a little twist. It's a little tidbit.
Priorities are different.
Little tidbit that I didn't have before. That as the rules change, right, you alter to adapt to that.
It's kind of like you look at like if we look at the jiu-jitsu world, we look at like the priority differences of like a sub-only culture versus IBJJF culture, like based on like priorities of points or
and I have my own opinions about the whole sub-only thing.
I mean,
I don't think it yielded what they thought it was going to. In concept, it was amazing in the beginning. The idea was that without the point structure, that people would become more aggressive and they would go after the submissions more. And they didn't. And they did in the beginning. But having no rules is still a rule. Having no penalties is still a rule. And so anytime you have a rule set, it is the competitor's responsibility to gain every advantage allowed within that rule set. If they don't, I'm sorry, but you're not competing. Not competing to the fullest. And the sub-only guys started to realize that against people who were potentially better than them, that it was that aggressiveness that was getting them caught. So they slowed down. And then, unfortunately speaking, overtime has kind of become more the norm in the sub-only genre, because ultimately it didn't yield the aggressiveness that they thought it would. And then same thing when we've had conversations here in the gym quite a bit about so when Eddie Bravo at EBI then was saying, hey, so we're going to pay for submissions in regulation. Okay. And that was supposed to also be the huge incentive to become more aggressive, because you're only going to get paid for the submissions you land in regulation. Okay. But what was more important to the competitor?
Winning.
Winning. Right. And so the idea of taking a chance and becoming overly aggressive and ultimately losing because of that aggressiveness versus going, you know what, there's 60 seconds left in this match. Let's go to overtime. And then you start seeing people prep for overtime.
It happens for sure.
And so ultimately,
some people are extremely good at those overtime. It's like extremely good.
So it's interesting to me that unfortunately, in my opinion, that genre started to become what it was developed to combat originally. Stalling, the concept of stalling points, guy gets up on 2 and rides those 2 points to victory.
Now somebody will just get him out, even though there's no points, and then
right.
And so you've got your guys that will, but you got like a lot of
and that's the thing. You'll always have your guys that will. You always have your guys, whether it's a points based or sub only. You'll always have, and I think actually it's the vast majority of people go for the kill. They go in, they want to win by that submission. But man, I'm sorry, but your opponent has a big say, over. I mean, come on, even Gordon Ryan got to win by advantage, to win one of his championships. I mean, like your opponent has a say in how easy they're going to go down, or if they're going to go down at all.
And I mean, if they're also playing super conservative. That goes back to your point. You know what I'm saying? In order not to get subbed, then they're going to be like stalling it out and just trying to hold position, not let their elbows come out. Or
but then you get the was the Metamoris match, Brendan Schaub versus Cyborg. Was it Cyborg?
Yeah.
Where Schaub just refused to engage.
Well, there was the
I mean,
there's the Craig Jones versus oh my gosh, the big jack dude. Leg locker got kicked out, like banned from the UFC forever.
Oh, Paul Harris.
Yeah. You know, did you watch that match with Craig's like it just done nothing for like 20 how long was that match? 15 minutes or just nothing?
Right.
So, again, sub only, it can have you can have good matches where people are actually hunting it, and then and then what we're seeing now is like, what's the point of wrestling in sub only? Right. So like I teach my guys wrestling all the time. We wrestle every day because I want them to make sure they have that. But if we're talking like competition for sub only,
it's not more sitting.
Well, let's get to the business that we're here for.
Seating guards.
Because by the time you're actually wrestle, you've now spent 5 minutes wrestling. By the time you get to the ground, you're exhausted, and it's over. So it's like you're seeing even people are trying to figure out how not to get their heads caught in wrestling and all that stuff now.
Right.
The dynamic of wrestling I see is like kind of from what years have been, and I know that's not very many, but like want your opinion on that. But it's the wrestling for jiu-jitsu, wrestling for grappling is kind of changing. It's like everybody's more like Greco judo, upper body stuff right now.
Right.
But what's that going to do? It's going to limit how many shots are taken, how many necks are grabbed, all that stuff. So it's going to stall out even more in an effort to not get subbed.
Yeah.
So like, and take away the points for takedown, like there's no incentive to do it. So it's like, we're getting these matches now. It's it's like I tell my guys, like if they're competing at a small event or something like that, after the first minute, if the wrestling's not happening, if it's just going to be, let's do jiu-jitsu.
That's assuming that your opponent even lets you. Yeah, because there's a lot that literally, as soon as they say go, run out to the center and sit. And just sit. And in the sub only genre, they don't even have to make a connection.
Yeah, unlike IBJJF, where you have to actually
they can literally just sit. Now again. But it's up to the competitor though to fully exploit the rule system for that victory.
Can't hate on it if they're doing.
You can't hate on it if it's allowed within the rules. 100%. Then
they're competing in that rule set. There's nothing wrong with that. 100%.
Exactly. And actually, I go to the point where I actually say it's their responsibility to say these are the skills I bring to the table, and here's my best way to apply them.
Show them and
unfortunately, though, I think the sport has done I don't want to call it a disservice, but they mix effectiveness and entertainment, and they're not the same.
It's going to be really hard. I think who was on? It was like a podcast I was listening to, and it just. Maybe it was Hickson. Maybe it was Hickson's podcast, the last one he was on Rogan. And it was like just trying to find an actual rule set that really is jujitsu, like what we actually got into this for originally. Not, like how do we make it a competitive environment for actual jujitsu people? Right. And that kind of like going back to like fighting, I guess, the original.
But again, the problem is though,
but you can't do that for everybody. You can't and then no time limits, all that stuff.
Even MMA has evolved under one concept to make it more exciting.
Yeah,
that's why you have stand-ups
rounds and all that stuff.
And if the action is not, they stand them up. I mean, that's a severe disadvantage to the grappler.
Entertainment's killing like the actual purpose of it.
And so, unfortunately, though, you'll hear people say, "Well, this is more effective." It's like, no, it's not. As an effectiveness, they're like, well, it's got weight. Well, the fact that it has more fans does not mean it's more effective. The two are not connected to each other at all. Because and you see it, I mean, it happens whether it's no gi or gi. I will admit it happens more in gi because of the friction and the grips and everything else.
Less movement.
There's way less movement.
People are like, why am I watching this?
But there's a severe reason why most grapplers are not fans of their own sport.
It's boring to watch.
They love to do it, but to watch it, they wait until the match means something.
Yeah.
They wait till it's a big match or something of that nature. But nobody's going.
You're not seeing people like actually spectating IBJJF World. So
No.
like, you know, like
And,
people
or
aren't showing up in
Copas, or
crowds,
Nagas, or
people watch the people that they know, the
Right.
people that they care about, but otherwise they're not sitting around unless you're just absolutely studying the game like a Donovan person. You're not actually like.
But then the
watch
problem
it
is
for entertainment.
nobody's doing it in MMA either. Nobody's. We were. I was just talking with Richard Cox, the matchmaker, and one of the main guys in Combat Night. And
good program from what I can tell.
So you go to a Combat Night, and just like virtually any of them, find me a person in that building that doesn't have a direct connection to one of the fighters. Okay, good luck. Yeah, go to a UFC. Okay, now find me a person in that building that has a direct connection. Okay, out of 17,000, 20,000 people in that arena, few.
Yep.
Go to a Combat Night.
Everybody's there for their homies.
Everybody's there for their homies. Okay. Very few people, even though they support their friends, everything else.
They're not a part of that group. They're not watching.
Very few people are going to an event just to watch, even though they have nobody on that card. I mean, very few people.
True.
I mean, they're almost all connected, and that I think is part of the thing is unfortunately speaking, I mean, in order to make a rule set that will be entertaining enough, we have to stop the conversation of this version's more effective. Correct. Or this version's more real or whatever, because the moment we make it for entertainment value, it all changes.
Yeah.
I mean, it all changes.
The efficiency and all that just kind of byproduct.
So now what brought you to Florida?
Man, I actually had a tragic event that my stepfather passed away, and it was just all of a sudden pack up and move to Florida and take care of mom. I'm a single mom, single child, and she was my only, right. Which of course I had my father and my stuff now. But
you can, they're all in the other room. But
so got brought in for that sort of thing. It's like turned into a blessing. Life's been great ever since. And I was actually about to move to Franklin, Tennessee, and stuff like that. We were already on the way to moving out of Kentucky and stuff like that.
Oh, gotcha.
Whenever my stepfather passed away, it was like time to take care of mom and some other stuff, and there was a lot of that went into it and everything. So it's just been a mix since we got down here, and It just seems like it's just been on a treadmill running at full speed since we got here. I love it. It's beautiful and it's all worked out really well. But that's how we got down here, man.
Florida's been different. Florida, like the entire state of Florida, is I'm going to compare it to Las Vegas. When you go to Las Vegas, there are so many people who are actually from Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. The town itself, when you go there, it's like, everybody's wearing a name badge. Like, I'm so-and-so from Casper, Wyoming. When I first came out, we moved out here about 13 years ago from California. And, I think right now, I know maybe about 50 people that are native Floridians.
Yeah,
everybody is from pretty much somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, especially because one of the guys was like, put a post out there the other day. It was like, it's like we should make it a thing. Like, if you're gonna move to Florida, you gotta beat like three Floridians. And I'm like, good luck finding them. I mean,
good luck finding the actual people from Florida.
Right.
Yeah. I was working for an apartment community. I lived here lived in Ocala about 13 years ago. And I worked for an apartment community. And so my job was kind of asking how their day was, where they're from and all that stuff. And I probably had a total of 5 people that were actually from Ocala.
Yeah.
And I talked to hundreds and hundreds of people, probably 5 people from Ocala during that whole entire thing. From Florida, probably 10. You know what I'm saying? Yep. It wasn't very many. It was crazy. I didn't realize how many people migrated. And it's only growing. Florida's blowing up right now. There's so many people moving here.
Yeah, especially with COVID and I mean, Florida being a little bit more open. Although Texas is taking a big influx too.
Yep.
Especially with the Rogan podcast. I mean, it sounds like every person he's interviewing he tells them, oh man, you got to move here.
Yep. Well, and then you got like for us jiu-jitsu people, that's kind of turning into a jiu-jitsu mecca as well there.
That's getting there.
Hopefully we're gonna have a jiu-jitsu mecca around this area too, but it looks like Austin's trying to take off. You've got B Team, Donaher, and
which weirdly,
they
both moved to the same area. I mean,
yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I guess they probably all had plans to move there, and then the split happened, right? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that's what. I don't have any clue.
Yeah,
but
that's crazy.
It's a nuts moment. But yeah, man, we ended up down here, and it's I don't know. It's been a fun time. We love Florida, and it seems like every time we leave the house, there's always something new or awesome to see.
Yeah.
And where I'm from in Kentucky, it's maybe everybody probably feels about that same way about their hometown and home state and all that stuff. It's just kind of like, it's just like you're used to it. Kind of like maybe the chocolate cake you haven't had forever, type thing, going back to earlier. But it's like, I don't know, man. Even living here 13 years ago from living, to now, it's like, this is just such a better experience. And maybe it's because I've met my family here. And I think so. I think it's probably the biggest part of it. I'm getting to experience Florida with them instead,
right.
But, and maybe I just appreciate life more this time around. I'm older and been through life a little bit more, but, still, man, just awesome down here. And, Kentucky just kind of not much growth ever happening there, especially where we were at. It was kind of like, once you're kind of locked in somewhere, you're going to be doing that for the next 40 or 50 years. Hope you like it, and your same friends are going to be the same friends. Not much change. And man, I really hope you enjoy what you're doing there. Yeah. That's a lot of the people that I know from there, and that's fine if they're happy that way. It's just, I was never that guy. I like to
where I came from, people lived there, but they didn't work there. That the community is where your house was. But commuting an hour plus to go to work, that was like the common. If you wanted to get, I don't want to call it a real job, but I mean, if you wanted to do something different, if you wanted to get, because I mean, again, we're a small town, we're limited as to what's there, and so if you wanted to have opportunity, you were driving.
Yeah. And I think our closest big city was 2 hours away. Nashville was the closest. So I mean, even people, that wanted to get out was really gonna have to really get out.
We were
Paducah was like where I'm from, Benton originally, and that's like it was definitely a town at the time, just nothing really there when I was growing up. And it's grown a lot now. They got wet. So now they, alcohol. They just got on that boat probably 10 years ago, which is fun. They weigh that long. I don't know. Not my business anymore. But anyway, but the economy seems to be growing there and stuff like that. But whenever we were there in, growing up in Benton, like we always looked at Paducah as like the leader. That was, and it wasn't anything. Like it didn't really have that many more opportunities to it. But then like once you move out of those areas, you're like, oh, there's a whole nother world out there.
Right.
Like there's all sorts of possibilities, and they're like really endless. Like you can do whatever you want if you're willing to sacrifice the life that you currently have, type thing. You have to be like, all right, I can move from here. And
it's interesting what travel will do to a person.
Mm-hmm.
When it was intriguing to us when we were in Stockton, and a lot of my friends were in Stockton. Stockton's a city of at the time period maybe 280,000, but urban sprawl. I mean, fairly large. So Stockton was an older city. I mean, back in the 1800s and things of that nature. I mean, it was actually there was a time period when Stockton was actually a little bit more important than San Francisco. Back in the Old West and things of that nature. But there was people that I met that when I was talking to them, I was like, hey, go with my family down to Mexico. And they're like, oh man, that's cool. And then we're talking and they're like, yeah, I've never traveled. Okay. So to me, the concept of travel was another country.
Yeah.
And then when I'm talking to them, they're like, yeah, I've never really traveled. And then pretty soon I'm learning it's like, no, they meant they've never left the city of Stockton.
Well, then you have people that go travel, and so you'll have like people that take people on family, like their families will go on family trips,
right?
But you'll go for like a destination, like you'll go to Disneyland or Disney World, or you'll go to a movie, or you'll go to a ice skating event, or I don't know, whatever it is. Yeah. But you don't actually go to the area and experience the area.
Correct.
You don't actually experience what is available in that area. You go to there for a thing, and then you leave. So you might travel, but you don't really like travel, like where
Right,
you
exactly.
actually experience the culture, experience what it is. And that's what really I think opens up the mind once you like kind
And
of,
that's why, well, like I tell people are like, I've traveled a decent amount. And I'm like, I've been in a lot of places. I'm like, but you can't count the layovers in the airport, because that's not, but seriously, these people had never even left the city of Stockton. I'm like, so you've never been to Lodi, the next town over? Like, no. I'm like, blows my mind. I'm like,
and you know, if they're happy doing it, it's like, okay, cool. But like, do they even know how happy they are if they've never even ventured out? You know, that is that the question.
Right.
You know, like, do they even know like what possibilities are even out there? You know, it's
Yeah.
like that you contain yourself in this little box. Good for you if you're cool with it, but man, what could you actually enjoy if you just stepped out? You know, and
or even just changing your worldview.
Yeah.
Your opinions on people in general.
I think every time I've moved away, I've found myself like a lot more. Like I've taken the amount that I understand about myself up a few levels every time, because I've had to like reintroduce myself to things.
Exactly. And that's where, like, I trained at a school in Mexico. I trained in a judo school down there for a week. And, like I said, I spoke very little Japanese. They didn't speak any English. And I spoke very little Spanish. So, but it started off, I did enough to be able to say, I'm visiting and I would like to have the opportunity to train with you guys. And by the time we were done, by the time the end of the week came, I mean, man, we were having a blast. We had this weird language we were communicating with, a mixture of everything from punting and grunting, pointing and grunting, it's like watching the old Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu DVDs, it's like, and so it was interesting in that kind of stuff, because like I said, but the camaraderie built even without having a tangible language that we could, that by the time we were done, just from training alone, was outstanding. I mean, it was amazing.
Like commitment of like, I guess, doing stuff together in a hard way, it's going to build up a relationship, and allow communication to flow through there somewhat,
Yeah, and that was awesome. one of my favorite experiences. I tried to train when I was in Italy. I tried until I saw it was going to be like a $75 taxi ride to the academy. So at that point, I was like, I don't have that much money and that's one way. So it's going to be $150 round trip just in the taxi ride. I was like, that was too much. That's there. So, but now you guys just joined the Pedigo Daisy Fresh.
Yeah, we're under Chad Hawkins, which is of course and Heath Pedigo, of course, and everything. But Chad is actually the one that kind of connected the dots for us, brought us in. And it was like we were under Eli Knight, which he's still like a big brother to me, and I still care about him a lot. And but he was my first instructor, and then like I was with Pedigo after I left him originally. So it's all kind of full circle, but just different circumstances. And this time, whenever I go back to Pedigo, it was because like we had a room, the Birdhouse Combat Club that I've been working on for a year.
Right.
We were looking for kind of a direction. I didn't know which way it really wanted to go. Do we want to stay like kind of in this garage and just build up a small thing and just have a good time? Or do we want to have a really good time and help out the community and change things? And it was really up to them. I kind of talked to them about it for a while and tried to figure it out. And then I started making some phone calls just to some different people I trust in the community to make like a, just get some guidance on like, if my people want to go up, cool, how do we do that? If they want to stay in the garage, okay, what should our goals be then? Just trying to kind of find our just trying to find our place and stuff like that. So I made a call to Chad, because he had been a friend and like I'd worked with him a little bit before, never on the mats. Coincidentally enough, I've been under two of the other Pedigo black belts before.
Right. Okay.
After they were, before they were black belts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I was under Clay Mayfield for a while, and then Major Wiltsey for a while. And then, where I moved down here, that's where I had switched off the affiliation because I had no training partners, no way to train or, for myself or anything. So I had to join gym.
I think the first time I met, actually, first time I had ever even heard of Pedigo, one of my students, friends, blue belts, he's a blue belt now with us, call him Coach.
Yeah.
And that's where it goes. So when he bounces back and forth, his mom was still up there. And then so part of the time he'd be up there, and then we'd come back down. He'd be, tell us about training up there. And and then we were at was it 2018? I think when we were at Master Worlds. We made a couple introductions. So I got a chance to actually meet some of the guys from Pedigo, everything else. And then this time at Pans, the amount of Pedigo and Daisy Fresh patches and shirts was I mean a lot. I mean
it's growing fast. I think they're probably, our team's probably one of the faster growing teams in America, if not the fastest growing. But I mean, you look at what Flow Grappling's done for us, and you look at what Pedigo's done for like George Valadares and Alejandro, those guys that are like running the cameras and all that stuff. Like I think George's done fantastic on video editing and all that stuff. And so they've been pumping out a lot of good social media and making them relatable. They're just they're people. And they come from crappy backgrounds like we all do or whatever, and I think that, that relatability is what kind of made people, attracted to it.
Yeah.
But man, you're having people like I'm the first, I'm almost 100% sure I'm going to be the first Pedigo affiliate with the actual building and everything down here in Florida.
Nice.
And, so people that whole team, they're so excited to be a part of that they're willing to train. We're willing to go compete everywhere, underneath that banner and yell like crazy everywhere. And it's a different environment. I think the reason that they're growing as fast as they are in the way, you see it from this year to the last, it's just blowing up.
Coach, every time, I mean, when, he's like, Dave, he goes, they're just killers up there. Now coaches, I mean, at the time period, I mean, Coach is in like his, like his 60s, and so it's kind of, he's a fun individual. I mean, he's
gonna be, that's some hard training up there.
He's an absolute kid, awesome. And so like with Coach, he's like, man, he's literally pulled stripes off his own belt. I mean, and so finally when COVID hit, and we had a small group of people in the academy, and I was like, you know what? I go, I don't know what the future brings, Coach, and this was already in the works and everything else. So I'm promoting your blue belt, because I mean, at this point, we don't even know what's about to happen in the world.
Yeah,
I'm like, so I'm not taking my chances, at this point, because I missed out being able to promote a couple really good people within our academy. Coach, I was like, I'm not missing that opportunity with Coach, because there was another kid that I was just getting ready to promote him to his blue belt. He was getting ready to leave for the Air Force. And by our original talks, I still had 2 months before he was going to leave. And then one day he comes in and he's doing an open mat, and he comes over, gives us a big hug. And,
I'm out.
And at that point in time, he's like, man, I just want to say thank you for everything you guys have done, but, I'm out tomorrow. So
brokenhearted.
So I go into the office, and I'm literally scrounging to see if I even have anything, a belt or whatever. I couldn't even find one. And so, but he ultimately ended up going to the Air Force. He went out to Italy, got his blue belt while he was out there, and and so like with Coach. I was like, no, I'm not missing that opportunity. But then, like I said, it was cool though, because he goes up, he's like, yeah, Dave, they're killers up there. He goes, they're just killers. They're, and Coach is such a animated character anyway.
I got to meet this guy. He sounds great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've seen him. I haven't trained with him in a while.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, COVID was a real concern for him during that portion. With his age. And not just for him, but for other members of his immediate family. So I've seen him. He's been back, but we haven't had the opportunity to actually, like train again with him. So I'm actually very happy that I did get that chance to promote him before all that stuff took place. But I mean, he spoke really highly of the group up there, and.
Like I've been a part of a few different associations now. I've been able to cross train a lot at different places. And as far as like a team that like, as far as I'm sure you guys do wonderful here. I know I see like you guys on social media. I've seen you guys at events. You guys are behind each other. It's great.
Yeah.
But like, there's not a lot of it's kind of a small, like it doesn't happen at every school. Like you definitely have that. instead it turns about the teacher caring more about his pocketbook or caring more about like, oh, this is just what it is. Like I'm a teacher of jiu-jitsu or whatever. And it's not what they love anymore.
Yeah.
And it happens to everybody about stuff sometimes. It's going to happen. But what changes from the pedago thing, or even what you still care 100% and you're still passionate about this. And like that passion is like what drives pedago and places like that to be a different breed.
Right. It's different. I was very concerned when because I'm 9 months in to having quit my real job. I mean, I still work part-time, so I still have a real safety net, so to speak. But I was a little concerned with truly making the leap to where financially I rely on this for my life or for my livelihood. I was very concerned about that, because I'm one of those where I made a promise to myself probably 20 plus years ago that I don't want to ever make a decision in this building based on money.
Yeah.
I don't, if I'm having issues with somebody and I need to ask them to leave, then it's time to go. If I want somebody to come in and train and they don't have the money, they don't have the finances or anything else, I don't want.
Let's work it out. I don't
want money to be the driving factor. Sure. And I sure as heck, I told myself I will never promote somebody simply because, and we've had them where they're like, well, if my kid doesn't get promoted, then we're
I'm out.
Yeah. Hey, sorry.
Yeah.
But there's the door, and sorry you feel that way. But made that promise a long, long time ago that money should not be, I mean, it is a business and it has to pay its own bills and it has to pay its rent and otherwise it doesn't survive.
Yeah.
So it's always, it's riding this very interesting, balance.
I'm not a business person. I'm way too nice. And I think you're probably one of those type of people. So it's like, it's naturally difficult for us to actually want to get that money. You know what I'm saying? Like I could teach all day, every day for free, really.
In the beginning, it was my day job that made any of it possible. I mean, because literally, I mean, we were paying most of it out of pocket.
Yeah.
Most of it was out of pocket because of,
just trying to make it,
as soon as somebody would be like, oh man, but then man, it's tough though, because they give you that sob story and they tell that stuff, and then
another one
every day they're coming in with the Starbucks.
Yep.
And you're like, dude,
so those things are like $7.
I'm working I'm working 40 hours of overtime this month to keep the lights on, and
you're coming in here giving me sob stories in Starbucks
about how you can't pay.
How about you get that normal cup of Folgers?
So it's always that delicate balance, but hey, we're coming up on time to get out there and train. Awesome. So why don't you give the people your shout outs and like if how they can contact you if they're in the area and want to come by, check out your school.
Fantastic. So I mean, just real briefly, of course, I'm Jeremy Michael Burd. You'll find me on Facebook, Bird Smash on Instagram, PSF _ Ocala or PSF Ocala _ the Birdhouse, rather. Man, I got that wrong like 3 times. Look at me go. So on Instagram, I just changed it recently, so it's all whatever. But either way, we're pretty easy to find on there. But yeah, we're running out of a garage right now. We've been training out of a garage and pushing it pretty hard out of there. But we are working on a building where we're going to have plenty of mat space and everything in Ocala, Florida. Hopefully going to have people like David and everybody around the area come in and train. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. We just want to be a part of this culture down here and help out the whole community, help out our community, get people moving. And that's it. So shout out to Chad Michael Hoggins, my black belt, the Pedago team for, getting me in there. And man, I fully love what's happening, and I'm super excited for the future, man. It's going to be great.
Nice, man. That's going to be awesome. So we're going to wrap this one up. So for our listeners out there, my handful of listeners out in Italy, I got family out in Montalto e Fugo, just above Cosenza. So, Paisan, we're good. All right. See you guys.
Thanks a lot, brother. That was awesome, man.